In this video, I'm going to be talking about the ethical and legal issues of sport and exercise science research. So what is ethics? Ethics is the moral principles that govern a person's behaviour or the conducting of an activity, and basically is what is right and what is wrong. And legal is just working within the civil law and the boundaries of the civil law. The process which is required for your study to be accepted and given an all clear is called ethical clearance. The first stage of this process is having your research checked and reviewed against the BASIS Code of Conduct to see if it's suitable and isn't unethical in any way. The next stage is having your application sent to an independent specialist panel. These are people who are specialists in the area that you are researching in. These people check to see if your study is ethical and legal to pass on to the next stage. The next stage is where your research application is reviewed in a process called risk versus benefit analysis to see if there is more of one or the other. Every research project should have some sort of benefit to society, and there should never be a higher risk than benefit. The last stage is to see if everyone involved in the research project is protected, such as the participants, the researchers, and even the organisation involved. And then after this, your application will be reviewed by a review committee, and these can grant you ethical clearance if there's nothing wrong with it. They may grant you ethical clearance with some minor amendments if there's some stuff that needs changing. They may grant you ethical clearance with some major amendments if there's quite a few things that need changing, or they may not grant ethical clearance at all if it's just too unethical and there's no way that will be accepted. So, during World War II, the Nazis conducted horrible, unethical experiments to try and get an advantage. There was a total disregard for human life. Many died and suffered lifelong injuries from these experiments. These included incendiary bomb experiments, which burned the victims alive, freezing the subjects to death, and even exposing them to mustard gas. This was the beginning of ethical and legal considerations for research studies on human subjects. Before 1947, there was no ethical consideration in relation to research projects using human test subjects. After the war and the dreadful Nazi experiments, the Nuremberg trial took place, and they devised the Nuremberg Code. This is 10 guidelines that have to be met and followed for any research project to take place. These include that the participants must be volunteers and cannot be forced into the study. It also includes that there has to be informed consent about the nature of the research and how it's going to be conducted. Also, it includes the participants are able to leave during the study if they feel like they can't go any further. This is the right to withdraw. And then in 1964, the World Medical Association developed the Declaration of Helsinki, which is a set of ethical principles for research conducted on human subjects. The outcomes from this include the research should be based on good science, and it can't be based on any negative science. The benefits must outweigh the risks, and it has to be conducted by scientifically qualified people. So BASIS, this is the British Association of Sport and Exercise Science, and is the professional body for sport and exercise science in the UK. They accredit researchers, which allow them to go ahead and conduct their research project. BASIS is the current professional body that every researcher should abide by their regulations. They have a code of conduct that every researcher needs to follow in order for their research project to be accepted. This includes getting ethical clearance, which is any researcher wanting to conduct a research study needs to seek and obtain prior ethical approval from a recognised body, and this can be, for example, NHS Research Ethics Committee. BASIS also require the researcher to get informed consent, which is a legal requirement telling the participants everything about the experiment. It also includes confidentiality, which is to preserve the confidentiality of confidential information acquired in their work and research, which must not be shared with anyone. It also includes data protection and responsibility, which is where the participants' individual data must be carried out in accordance to the Data Protection Act of 1998, and the obtaining of that data and its presentation and publication must be unbiased and responsible. The Code of Conduct also includes competence, which is where the researchers must recognise their limitations in qualifications, experience and expertise, and must operate within these limits. The final one is professional conduct, which is basically being responsible and sensible during the experiment and making sure the participants are safe and comfortable. One good thing about this scenario is that the researchers got informed consent from the parents of the participants. This is where the researcher tells the participant everything about the research study and allows them to volunteer for the study, so they're not forced into it. This includes the disclosure of the study procedures and the potential risks involved. It also includes the methodology and how it is to be carried out. Another good thing about this scenario is that all of the participants were volunteers and none of them were forced to take part. This means that they took part of their own accord and didn't have to be forced into anything. One bad thing about this scenario is that the participants did not have the right to withdraw, which meant that they could not leave the study if they wanted to, which is breaking the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki. The consequence of this is losing their BASIS accreditation and take part in ethical training, as the participants did not feel comfortable and may have experienced psychological and physical harm, which is why the right to withdraw is so important. Because they may have experienced psychological and physical harm, this breaks the Nuremberg Code and Declaration of Helsinki. What should have happened is that if the participants wanted to leave, they could, because they felt uncomfortable giving them the right to withdraw. Another bad thing is confidentiality, as the researchers have published participants' results on their website without their permission. If there was permission, then it would have been fine, but because they didn't, it could have some serious consequences, because they are breaking both the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki. They also do not follow the BASIS Code of Conduct. This could lead to them losing their BASIS accreditation as they break their Code of Conduct. They could also have a tribunal, leading to a fine, as they publish information without the consent of the participant. What should have happened is that the researcher should have asked for permission from the participant and their parent to publish their results. Another bad thing is that the researcher published personal information from the participant on their website without their permission. This is bad because they're breaking the Data Protection Act of 1998, which is a legal requirement. The consequence of this would most likely be a prison sentence, because the Data Protection Act is a legal act and breaking this is a criminal offence. This also puts the participant at risk, as their personal information is free for anyone to see. What should have happened is that the researchers should have asked for permission to put their personal information on their website, or just not put it on there at all. The final bad practice in this scenario is that the health and safety of the participants is at risk. This is because the participants were asking to stop as they were uncomfortable during the tests and were not allowed to. The consequences of this is that the participants may have experienced both physical and psychological pain due to them not being allowed to stop. This may also lead to the researcher losing their BASIS accreditation, as they are breaking the Code of Conduct. What should have happened is that the participants should have been allowed to stop the tests when they wanted to avoid any pain inflicted. The good things about this scenario is that the researchers got the participants to fill out a health screening questionnaire beforehand. This allows the researchers to find out their medical history and current medical issues that may prevent them from taking part in the study. If they didn't do this, they may aggravate a medical condition and can lead to serious injury or even death if it is very serious. Another good thing about this scenario is the researcher got the participant to sign a participant disclaimer. This is a form saying that if any sort of injury happens to the participant, they cannot take action against the researchers. This is because that they have laid out all the necessary safety precautions that follow every guideline, so if anything happens, it's not the researcher's fault. One bad thing about this scenario is that the researcher told the participants that they will all have the supplement, when in fact some of them do not. This is deception by commission, because they told the participants that they were all taking the supplement, when in fact some of them are not, basically lying to them. The reason that this is bad is because there is no debrief at the end of the experiment. The purpose of the debrief is to tell them everything that has happened and why, to make sure that all the participants are okay and well. Because there is no debrief, the participants don't know exactly what happened and may not be happy to carry on with the study. The consequence of this can be that the researcher has to take part in ethical training while suspended from any research for a set period of time so that they can learn what is right and wrong to do when testing human subjects. What should have happened is that the researcher should have given a debrief at the end of the experiment to tell the participants exactly what happened and to make sure they are okay to carry on. One of the good things in this third scenario is that the researchers got informed consent from the parents of the participants. This is important that they get it from the parents as they are under 18 and cannot agree to the study themselves. This is where the researcher tells them everything about the experiment, as I previously talked about in the first scenario. The researchers also made sure that the participants were all volunteers and were not forced to sign up for the study. One of the bad things about this scenario is that the researchers split the group based on ability and skill level. This is inequality and the researchers are not being impartial as the participants are being split and focused on more based on skill level, which is not very equal or fair. The researchers have a responsibility to make sure the participants feel safe, and mocking the less able participants is not very fair and not professional in any way. A consequence of this may be that the researchers lose their professional or research credibility due to the nature of the study and how it was conducted. This means that they can no longer conduct any research for the rest of their lives or for a period of time, depending on the seriousness. Another bad thing in this scenario is that the researchers copied the study from somebody else and did not ask for their permission or consent to be able to carry out again. This is called scientific misconduct because they are plagiarizing somebody else's work, which could have some serious consequences. For example, it could lead to a tribunal, which could lead to a huge fine, as plagiarism is a big deal and is a serious legal issue that isn't taken lightly. The researchers should have asked the original researchers for permission to carry out the study, as it then wouldn't be plagiarism and wouldn't be an issue. That's the end.